The massive crystal halls of Xerion Prime had never seen such tension. 12 different alien species sat around the enormous circular table, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, hums, and electronic pulses that the universal translator struggled to keep up with. Ambassador Zethkari of the Vorthak hegemony stood at the center of the room. His tall insect-like body clicked nervously as he activated the holographic display. Images of human colonies spread across dozens of star systems filled the air above the table. Fellow council members, Zethkari began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spoken in these halls for over 3 centuries. We face a crisis unlike any we have encountered in the past millennium. The other ambassadors leaned forward. The Altarians, with their blue-scaled skin and multiple eyes, watched with obvious concern. The gaseous Nephilim flickered in their containment suits, while the rock-like Gorons rumbled deep in their massive chests. The humans, Zethkari continued, have become a problem we can no longer ignore. The holographic display zoomed in on a human colony ship. The massive vessel was ugly by galactic standards, all harsh angles and exposed machinery. But it worked, and that was what worried the Council. In the past 50 years, these creatures have established colonies in 47 star systems. 47! Zethkari's mandibles clicked rapidly. They terraform planets without requesting permission. They build stations in systems we have marked as protected. They ignore every boundary we have established. Ambassador Korvesh of the Altarians raised one of his 4 arms. The humans are new to space travel. Perhaps they simply do not understand our laws. Zethkari's compound eyes focused on the Altarian. That might have been acceptable at first. But look at this. The display changed to show a primitive world in the outer rim. The native species looked similar to large, furry mammals. They had barely discovered fire 1,000 years ago when the Council first catalogued them. The Komori homeworld, Zethkari announced. The Council placed this system under protection status 800 years ago. The natives were developing naturally, slowly, as nature intended. The image shifted to show the same planet, but now dotted with strange structures and glowing with artificial lights. This was taken last month. The humans made contact with the Komori 3 years ago. Look what they have done. The council members stirred uneasily. In the display, Komori cities now reached toward the sky. Orbital platforms surrounded their world and sleek ships moved between them. The humans gave them technology, Zethkari said, his voice growing cold. Advanced materials science. Fusion power. Faster than light communication. In 3 years, the Komori have advanced what should have taken them 10,000 years. The massive Goron ambassador, Stones That Sing, spoke in a voice like grinding mountains. This violates the Protected Development Protocol. It does more than violate it, Zethkari replied. It destroys the very foundation of galactic stability. We have maintained peace for 3,000 years by carefully managing the development of younger species. We guide them slowly, gently, allowing them to advance only when they are ready. He gestured and more images appeared. Human ships meeting with dozens of different species, technology exchanges, trade agreements, military alliances. The humans do not understand the delicate balance we maintain. They see a species struggling with disease, and they share medical technology. They find a world dying from resource depletion, and they teach advanced mining techniques. They encounter a species facing invasion from pirates, and they provide weapons. Ambassador Veltar of the Crystalline Collective chimed like wind through glass caves. Their intentions may be good, but the results are chaos. Too much change too quickly leads to war, revolution, collapse. Exactly, Zethkari agreed. The humans think they are helping, but they are destroying the order we have spent millennia creating. And now they are becoming too powerful to ignore. The display showed human military vessels. They were not the largest ships in the galaxy, but they moved with purpose and coordination that made the older species uncomfortable. Their technology advances at an impossible rate, Zethkari continued. They reverse engineer everything they encounter. They take our designs and somehow make them better, faster, more efficient. They share knowledge freely among themselves in a way that should be impossible. He paused, letting the implications sink in. If we allow this to continue, the humans will upset the balance of power that has kept the galaxy stable. Worse, they will inspire other young species to follow their example. Chaos will spread from system to system until everything we have built crumbles. The council chamber fell silent except for the various breathing sounds of a dozen different species. Finally, first speaker Morvac of the Elder Council spoke. The ancient being's form was hidden within robes that seemed to shift and move on their own. What do you propose? Zethkari straightened to his full height. We issue a final warning. The humans must cease their unauthorized expansion immediately. They must submit to council oversight and accept guidance in their development. They must abandon all colonies established beyond Sector 7 and end all contact with protected species. And if they refuse? Asked Corvesh. Then we demonstrate the price of defying the galactic order. The display changed one final time. It showed a large moon orbiting a gas giant in an empty system. The rocky satellite was covered in craters and showed no signs of life. The demonstration will be broadcast to every human colony, ship, and station simultaneously, Zethkari explained. They will see what happens to those who threaten galactic stability. In the display, 12 massive council dreadnoughts moved into position around the moon. Each ship was over 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that had maintained peace through strength for thousands of years. The weapons fired as one. Beams of pure energy, particle accelerators, and quantum disruptors focused on a single point. The moon shuddered, cracked, and then simply ceased to exist. Where a celestial body had orbited for billions of years, only expanding dust remained. The humans will understand that this is not a negotiation, Zethkari said quietly. It is a final warning. They have 30 standard cycles to comply, or they will face the full might of the Galactic Council. The vote was unanimous. 12 species representing thousands of worlds and trillions of beings agreed that humanity had grown too dangerous to ignore. As the council session ended and the various ambassadors returned to their ships, none of them noticed the small probe that had been recording everything from the shadows of the crystal halls. The device was so advanced, so perfectly stealthed, that even the council's best sensors had missed it entirely. The probe transmitted its data across the galaxy using quantum entanglement, a technology the council believed was still beyond human capability. In hidden bases throughout human space, military leaders watched the council's debate with grim satisfaction. The warning was exactly what they had been expecting. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. They had hoped the council would be reasonable. They had prepared for war. As the ultimatum reached human space and the demonstration of the moon's destruction played on every screen in every human settlement, Admiral Sarah Chen smiled coldly aboard her flagship. The council had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had given humanity exactly 30 days to finish their preparations. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the council's ultimatum replay for the 5th time. The destruction of the moon played across the main screen, a clear message of what awaited defiant humans. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the calm efficiency that had made human space forces legendary among those who knew their true capabilities. Admiral, called Commander Torres from the communication station, we're receiving priority signals from all sector commands. The Colonial Authority is calling an emergency session. Chen nodded grimly. Route everything to Conference Room Alpha. Full encryption. And Torres? Activate Prometheus Protocol. All networks, all stations. The communications officer's fingers flew over his console. Across human space, a network that had been hidden for decades suddenly came alive. Quantum entanglement communicators, invisible to council sensors, connected military installations that officially did not exist. Chen made her way to the conference room, where holographic projections of humanity's top military and civilian leaders were already materializing. Defense Minister Williams appeared first, his weathered face showing no surprise at the council's ultimatum. I take it everyone has seen our 30-day eviction notice? Chen asked as she took her seat. We've been expecting this for 20 years, replied Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of xenoarchaeology and human intelligence's most valuable asset. The only surprise is that it took them this long. The hologram of General Morrison, commander of the Hidden Fleet, leaned forward. Our intelligence networks confirm that the Council believes they're dealing with a primitive species that got lucky with a few technological breakthroughs. They have no idea what we've really been doing out here. Chen activated the room's main display. Star maps filled the air, showing human space as the Council saw it. 47 small colonies scattered across a relatively tiny portion of the galaxy. This is what they think we are, Chen said. Then she pressed another control. The map transformed. Hidden bases appeared throughout the dark spaces between stars. Massive shipyards materialized in asteroid belts. Entire fleets revealed themselves in nebulae where no ships should exist. The human presence in the galaxy was not 47 colonies, it was over 300 installations, connected by a web of secret supply lines and communication networks, and Project Prometheus has been active for 38 years. Dr. Vasquez explained to those who were seeing the full scope for the first time. We began building our hidden infrastructure the day we made first contact with the Council. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on humanity's first encounter with Council forces. The official record showed a peaceful meeting between curious humans and wise galactic elders who offered guidance to a young species. The truth was very different. Our xenoarchaeology teams had already discovered the ruins of the Makers on Kepler 442b. An entire civilization wiped out just as they achieved faster-than-light travel. The official Council records listed their extinction as a solar flare event. The display showed images of alien ruins, clearly destroyed by weapons rather than natural disasters. But we found the real evidence, energy signatures consistent with Council dreadnought weapons. The Makers hadn't died from a solar flare. They had been murdered. Murmurs of anger rippled through the assembled leaders, even though most had heard this story before. We kept digging, Dr. Vasquez continued. The Zephyrians, extinct due to civil war according to Council records. Reality, they developed quantum computing too quickly. The Council eliminated them before they could challenge galactic authority. More images appeared. 17 different species, all extinct, all officially victims of natural disasters or internal conflicts. All actually destroyed by Council forces when they became too advanced too quickly. The pattern was clear, Defense Minister Williams said. The Council maintains power by keeping younger species weak and dependent. Any species that advances too rapidly becomes a threat to be eliminated. Which brings us to the current situation, Chen said. We always knew this day would come. The question is, are we ready? General Morrison smiled coldly. Admiral, we've been ready for a decade. Our shipyards have produced 800 vessels using designs the Council has never seen. Our weapons technology is based on studying their own equipment, then improving it. Our defensive networks are already in place around every human world. What about the protected species? Asked Colonial Administrator Park. The Council is probably expecting us to abandon our new allies, Dr. Vasquez answered. We've been preparing them too. Every species we've contacted has been given the same gift. The knowledge of what the Council really is. The Kimori already know they were being suppressed, so do the Valthari, the Endari, and 14 other species. She activated another display showing dozens of worlds throughout Council space. When the fighting starts, they'll be ready to act. The Council has been maintaining power through lies and suppression fields that prevent technological advancement. We've taught our allies how to disable those fields. Chen studied the strategic display. What's our military assessment? The Council has overwhelming numerical superiority in traditional terms, admitted General Morrison. They can field over 10,000 ships if they mobilize everything. We have 800. But they're fighting the last war, added Colonel Zhang from Deep Space Intelligence. Their ships are massive, heavily armored, designed to intimidate and overwhelm primitive opponents. Our vessels are smaller, faster, more maneuverable. We've studied every engagement they've fought for the past century. More importantly, Dr. Vasquez interjected, they've never faced an opponent that understood their tactics, their technology, and their psychology as completely as we do. They think they're fighting barbarians with stolen weapons. They have no idea they're facing an enemy that has been studying them for 4 decades. Chen nodded slowly. What about civilian casualties? They'll target our colonies first? Actually, they won't, said Morrison with confidence. Council doctrine calls for minimal collateral damage in police actions. They want to teach us a lesson, not commit genocide. They'll try to capture our worlds intact to demonstrate their mercy and justify their authority. That arrogance will be their downfall, Chen replied. They think they're disciplining unruly children, not fighting a war. Defense Minister Williams leaned back in his chair. So we're really doing this. 30,000 years of galactic peace and we're about to shatter it. The peace was built on mass murder and oppression, Dr. Vasquez said firmly. 17 extinct species would disagree with calling it peace. And how many others were kept in primitive conditions, denied the chance to reach their potential? Chen stood up, her decision made. The Council gave us 30 days to surrender our freedom and abandon our allies. Instead, we'll use those 30 days to complete our final preparations. She looked around the room at humanity's leaders. Signal all commands. Operation Prometheus is now active. When the Council comes looking for primitive humans to discipline, they'll find something they never expected. What's that? Asked Administrator Park. Chen smiled grimly. They'll find humans who refuse to kneel. As the conference ended and the holograms faded, Chen remained alone in the room, studying the star maps. In 30 days, the galaxy would change forever. The Council's 3,000-year reign was about to end, whether they knew it or not. Humanity had spent 4 decades preparing for this moment. They had studied their enemy, built their strength in secret, and forged alliances across the galaxy. The Council thought they were delivering an ultimatum to a species of primitive upstarts. They were about to discover they had declared war on the most dangerous opponents they had ever faced, humans with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Admiral Corvesh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Righteous Purpose, as the Council's intervention fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human colony system. 400 ships materialized from the swirling energy of transit space, their massive forms bristling with weapons that had never known defeat. The Altarian admiral felt a mixture of confidence and regret as he studied the tactical displays. His 4 eyes could process information faster than most species, and what he saw confirmed intelligence reports. The human colony of New Geneva appeared to be exactly what the Council expected, a small farming world with minimal defenses. Signal from the lead human vessel, Admiral, reported his communications officer. They're requesting peaceful negotiations. Corvesh's scaled hide rippled with what humans might have recognized as a sigh. Standard procedure, Lieutenant. We broadcast the surrender terms first, give them a chance to comply before we demonstrate Council authority. The main screen activated, showing Corvesh in his full ceremonial armor. The transmission would reach every human installation in the system. This is Admiral Corvesh of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. By authority of the ruling council, this system has been declared in violation of galactic law. You have 1 hour to power down all weapons, surrender your vessels, and prepare for peaceful occupation. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. He gestured to cut the transmission, then turned to his tactical officer. Deployment status? All ships in position, Admiral. The humans have 3 light cruisers and 12 patrol vessels. Minimal orbital defenses around the colony world. No significant military infrastructure detected. Corvesh nodded. This would be over quickly with minimal casualties. The humans would see the overwhelming force arrayed against them and surrender. A few would probably be made examples of, but most would simply be relocated to more suitable worlds under Council supervision. Admiral, called the sensor officer, I'm detecting some kind of transmission from the human vessels. It's not directed at us, ignore it. Probably calling for help from other colonies. Let them. It will save us time when we move to the next system. What Corvesh did not know was that the transmission was using quantum entanglement technology the Council believed was beyond human capability. Across the galaxy, every human installation was receiving real-time tactical data from New Geneva. More importantly, they were confirming that the Council had taken the bait. On the surface of New Geneva, Colonel Sarah Martinez watched the Council fleet through her command center's displays. The installation was built into a mountain and completely hidden from orbital sensors. To the Council ships above, the planet looked like a simple agricultural world with basic infrastructure. They had no idea they were looking at one of humanity's most heavily fortified systems. All stations report ready, her tactical officer announced. The Council fleet is exactly where we want them. Martinez nodded grimly. Signal Admiral Chen. Tell her the trap is set. In space above, Admiral Corvesh waited patiently as the hour deadline approached. The human ships had not moved from their positions and no additional vessels had appeared. Standard intimidation tactics were working perfectly. 30 minutes remaining, his communications officer reported. No response to our surrender demands. They're trying to appear brave for their colonists, Corvesh said. Common behavior among primitive species. They'll surrender at the last moment to avoid unnecessary casualties. But as the deadline approached, something began to trouble the Altarian admiral. His sensors were picking up strange energy readings from various points throughout the system. Nothing threatening, just unusual. Lieutenant, scan those asteroids again. Something is different about them. The sensor officer complied, then looked up with confusion. Sir, I'm reading artificial structures inside several of the larger asteroids. The signatures are very faint, almost like they're deliberately hidden. Corvesh felt the first stirring of unease. Hidden how? Unknown, sir. The technology doesn't match anything in our databases. On New Geneva's surface, Colonel Martinez smiled as her sensors detected the Council ships beginning deeper scans. They're starting to realize something is wrong. Activate Phase 1. Throughout the New Geneva system, installations that had been carefully hidden for 20 years began to reveal themselves. What the Council had mistaken for simple mining platforms unfolded into weapon arrays. Asteroids split open to reveal hidden shipyards. Empty space shimmered as cloaked defense platforms became visible. On the Righteous Purpose, alarm klaxons began sounding as the tactical display lit up with new contacts. Admiral, shouted the sensor officer. Multiple new signatures throughout the system. I count at least 50 military installations that weren't there 5 minutes ago. Corvesh stared at the display in shock. The simple farming colony had transformed into a fortress system. How is this possible? Our intelligence showed minimal defenses. Sir, I'm detecting ships launching from the hidden bases. Lots of ships. The main screen shifted to show sleek human vessels emerging from concealment. They were smaller than Council ships, but moved with a grace and speed that made Corvesh's experienced eye narrow with concern. Fleet status? He demanded. All ships ready for combat, Admiral. But sir, I'm reading some very unusual energy signatures from those human vessels. Their power output is far higher than it should be for ships that size. Corvesh studied the tactical display. The humans now had over 60 ships in the system, but they were still outnumbered nearly 7-1. Signal the fleet. Battle formations. We end this now. But as the Council ships began to move, the human response was unlike anything in Corvesh's long military career. Instead of forming up for a traditional battle line engagement, the human ships scattered in seemingly random directions, moving at speeds that should have been impossible for vessels their size. They're running, observed the tactical officer. No, Corvesh said slowly, his combat instincts warning him. They're not running. They're positioning. The human ships had spread throughout the system in a complex three-dimensional pattern that took advantage of asteroid fields, orbital mechanics, and the gravitational effects of the system's three gas giants. It was like watching a deadly dance choreographed by someone who understood space combat better than species who had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the human commander. The main screen showed a middle-aged human woman in a uniform Corvesh didn't recognize. Her expression was calm, almost sad. Admiral Corvesh, she said, somehow knowing his name. This is Colonel Martinez commanding New Geneva Defense Force. I want you to know that we take no pleasure in what's about to happen. But you gave us no choice. Corvesh leaned forward. Colonel, you are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now and I promise minimal casualties among your forces. Martinez shook her head. Admiral, you're not fighting the species you think you are. The Galactic Council has maintained power for 3,000 years by suppressing younger races and destroying those who grew too strong too quickly. That ends today. Impossible. The Council maintains galactic peace and order. The Council has committed genocide against 17 species who refuse to remain primitive and weak, Martinez replied. We have the evidence, Admiral. We know what you really are. Before Corvesh could respond, his tactical officer shouted a warning. Admiral, multiple launches detected from the human vessels. Incoming projectiles. Raise shields. All weapons target the nearest human ships. But the human attack was unlike anything the Council forces had ever encountered. Instead of energy weapons or traditional missiles, the human ships fired what appeared to be small, fast-moving projectiles that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Quantum torpedoes. Martinez's voice came over the comm. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons and conventional explosives. They won't stop weapons that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The first torpedo struck the Righteous Purpose's shields and passed through them, like they weren't there. The weapon materialized inside the ship's hull and exploded with devastating effect. Throughout the Council fleet, similar explosions began tearing ships apart from the inside. Vessels that had never known defeat found themselves helpless against weapons that bypassed their defenses entirely. Return fire, Corvesh ordered desperately. All ships concentrate fire on the nearest human vessels. The Council dreadnoughts unleashed their terrible weapons, energy beams and particle accelerators that could crack planets. But the human ships seemed to dance between the incoming fire, their movements too precise and coordinated to be natural. "How are they moving like that?" demanded the tactical officer. The answer came from Martinez's continued transmission. "Quantum entanglement communication networks, Admiral. Every human ship in this system is connected by instantaneous data links. We don't just coordinate our attacks, we coordinate our thoughts." As Corvesh watched in horror, his magnificent fleet began to fall apart. Ships that had maintained Council authority for millennia were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they had expected to crush in minutes. "Signal retreat," he ordered. "All ships withdraw to safe distance." But Martinez's voice followed them. "There is no safe distance, Admiral. And this is only the beginning." Every specie the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Half the member species representatives appeared as holograms, their homeworlds too far away for physical attendance. The other half sat in their designated seats, but the usual order and dignity of the ancient chamber was gone. Ambassador Zethkari's compound eyes darted nervously between his fellow council members. The reports from the New Geneva battle had reached them 6 hours ago. Of Admiral Corvesh's 400 ships, only 97 had survived. The humans had lost 12 vessels. "This is impossible," declared Ambassador Morvac of the Elder Council, his ancient form trembling with rage. "No primitive species could achieve such results against our finest fleet." "They are not primitive," came a new voice from the chamber entrance. Ambassador Corvesh limped into the room, his blue scales scarred and burned from the battle. One of his forearms was missing, replaced by a mechanical prosthetic that hummed softly. "Admiral," Zethkari said, rising from his seat, "you should be in medical treatment." "There will be time for healing later," Corvesh replied grimly. "Right now, the Council needs to hear what we faced out there." He activated the chamber's holographic display, showing recordings from the battle. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as human ships moved with impossible coordination, their weapons bypassing Council defenses as if they didn't exist. "They knew everything about us," Corvesh continued. "Our ship designs, our weapons capabilities, our tactical doctrines. They had studied us for decades and prepared countermeasures for every advantage we possessed." "How is such preparation possible?" asked Veltar of the Crystalline Collective. "Our intelligence networks detected no significant military buildup in human space." Corvesh's remaining eyes focused on the crystalline being. "Because they built their true military infrastructure in places we never looked. Hidden bases in asteroid fields, shipyards inside nebulae. They used our own assumptions against us." The display shifted to show the quantum torpedoes in action, phasing through Council shields and exploding inside ship hulls. "Their weapons technology is beyond anything we've encountered. Multi-dimensional physics applied to military purposes. They didn't just steal our technology. They improved it in ways we never imagined possible." But the worst news was yet to come. As Corvesh spoke, urgent messages began arriving from across Council space. Worlds that had been under Council protection for centuries were suddenly going dark. "The Komori system has declared independence," reported a communications officer. "They've disabled the suppression fields and are broadcasting on all frequencies." More reports followed in rapid succession. The Valthari homeworld, the Endari colonies, the peaceful Zephyrian refugees who had supposedly died out centuries ago, but had actually been relocated to hidden worlds. 17 species, Zethkari whispered, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. The humans told them about the 17 extinct species. The main display now showed recordings being broadcast across the galaxy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human xenoarchaeologist, was presenting evidence of each species that the Council had eliminated. The makers of Kepler 442b, supposedly destroyed by a solar flare but actually murdered when they developed faster-than-light travel too quickly. The architects of the Veil Nebula, who had created beautiful crystal cities that the Council deemed too advanced for their development level. She has detailed records, stones that sing rumbled, his massive rocky form shifting uncomfortably. Weapon signatures, energy readings, communication intercepts. How did they acquire such information? "The same way they acquired everything else," Corvesh answered bitterly, "by being far more intelligent and prepared than we gave them credit for." But the revelation that shattered the Council was what came next. The broadcast shifted to show current Council members' homeworlds. with evidence that several of them had originally belonged to other species. The Altarian homeworld, Dr. Vasquez's recorded voice explained, was originally inhabited by the Singers, a species of crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies. The Council relocated them to make room for their new Altarian allies, claiming the Singers had died from a plague. Corvesh stared at the evidence in horror. His own people's beautiful homeworld, with its perfect blue oceans and floating cities, had been stolen from another species entirely. The Vorthak took their current worlds from the Builders, the broadcast continued. The Nephilim displaced the Garden Tenders. 5 of the 12 Council species are living on worlds that belong to others. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species turned on each other, ancient alliances crumbling as the truth of their origins was revealed. The Altarians demanded to know what had happened to the original inhabitants of their homeworld. The crystalline collective began resonating with frequencies that hurt the other species' hearing. "Order," shouted First Speaker Morvac, but his authority was evaporating with each new revelation. The broadcasts were having their intended effect throughout Council space. Member worlds that had never questioned their government's benevolence were suddenly faced with evidence of systematic genocide and displacement. Protests began on a dozen worlds. 3 species recalled their fleets from other operations, no longer trusting Council command. "It gets worse," Corvesh announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "The humans aren't fighting this war alone." The display showed new footage from across the galaxy. The Kamori, armed with human-provided weapons, were attacking Council installations in their sector. The Andari had revealed a hidden fleet of ships built from human designs. Most shocking of all, the Zephyrians, supposedly extinct for 800 years, had emerged from hiding with technology that matched anything the Council possessed. "The humans have been building an alliance for decades," Corvesh explained. "Every species they contacted, every world they helped, they were preparing for this moment. We're not facing one young species that got lucky. We're facing a coalition of every group the Council has oppressed or displaced." Ambassador Zethkari felt his certainty crumbling. "How many species have joined this resistance?" "Current intelligence suggests 43 worlds have declared independence from Council authority," replied the communications officer. "The number is growing hourly. We can crush them," declared Morvac desperately. "Mobilize every ship in Council space. Show them the consequences of defying galactic order." But even as he spoke, more reports were arriving. The Altarian Senate had voted to withdraw their fleets from Council service, pending an investigation into their homeworld's true history. The Gorons were demanding territorial concessions for species they had displaced. The crystalline collective was fragmenting as different factions argued over their complicity in Council crimes. Corvesh looked around the chamber at the dissolution of everything he had served his entire life. "There may not be enough loyal fleets left to mobilize. The humans didn't just attack our ships. They attacked the foundation of our authority. They turned our own people against us by showing them the truth." The final blow came when the chamber's main display activated without authorization. A human face appeared. Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of what the intelligence reports now revealed was the largest military force in the galaxy. "Members of the former Galactic Council," she said, her voice carrying easily through the crystal halls. "Your 3,000-year reign of oppression is over. 17 species died because they refused to kneel to your authority. Today we honor their memory by ensuring no other species will suffer the same fate. You cannot destroy galactic order," Zethkari shouted at the display. "Without the Council, there will be chaos, war, suffering." Chen's expression remained calm. "There was already chaos, war, and suffering. You just hid it from those who benefited from your system. The only difference now is that the, oppressed are fighting back instead of dying." Quietly, the transmission continued as explosions began echoing through the crystal halls of Zerion Prime. Human ships were attacking the Council's seat of power directly. "The age of the Council is finished," Chen announced as the ancient crystal spires began to crack and fall. "The galaxy belongs to all species, not just the 12 who appointed themselves its masters." As the transmission ended and the chamber began to collapse around them, the surviving Council members realized that their final warning to humanity had become humanity's final warning to them. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey had evolved into something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. 6 months after the Battle of New Geneva, Ambassador Zethkari sat in the public gallery of what had once been the Council's Grand Chamber. The crystal halls had been rebuilt, but they looked different now. Gone were the symbols of council authority, replaced by simple plaques bearing the names of the 17 extinct species. Where once 12 thrones had dominated the chamber, now dozens of smaller seats arranged in a circle welcomed representatives from across the galaxy. Zethkari pulled his tattered diplomatic robes closer around his insect-like frame. He was no longer an ambassador. The Vorthak hegemony had stripped him of his titles when the truth about their stolen homeworlds became public. His own people had exiled him for his role in maintaining the Council's lies. Below him, the first session of the Free Species Alliance was about to begin. Representatives from 63 worlds filled the chamber, their various forms creating a diversity that the old council had never allowed. There were humans, of course, but also Komori with their newly enhanced technology, Endari in their elegant environmental suits, and even a few Zephyrians who had emerged from 8 centuries of hiding. Citizens of the galaxy, announced a young human woman as she stepped to the central podium. Zethkari recognized her from the intelligence files, Maria Santos, one of the new Alliance diplomats. She couldn't be more than 30 years old, yet she commanded the attention of beings who had ruled worlds for centuries. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals united in the belief that all species deserve the chance to reach their full potential. Zethkari noticed how different the atmosphere was from the old council sessions. There was no formal hierarchy, no ancient protocols that elevated some voices above others. When the Komori representative spoke, the translation systems rendered his words with the same weight as those from species that had mastered spaceflight for millennia. The old system was built on fear, Santos continued. Fear that younger species would grow too powerful too quickly. Fear that diversity would lead to chaos. Fear that freedom would destroy order. She gestured to the memorial plaques lining the walls. But fear-based order is not peace. It is oppression disguised as stability. The 17 species whose names surround us died because they refused to limit their potential to make others comfortable. A Goron representative, his rocky frame smaller than the giants who had once commanded council fleets, rose to speak. The Alliance offers what the Council never could: growth without guilt, advancement without permission, cooperation without coercion. Zethkari watched the proceedings with a mixture of fascination and dread. The humans had not simply conquered the Council. They had replaced it with something entirely different. Instead of a small group controlling the many, this alliance invited participation from any species willing to embrace its principles. But what truly amazed him was how the humans treated their former enemies. When Admiral Korvesh entered the chamber, walking slowly on his prosthetic legs, several Alliance representatives stood in respectful greeting. The Altarian had requested permission to address the assembly. Despite his role in the Council's oppression, I commanded the fleet that attacked New Geneva, Korvesh said, his 4 eyes focusing on the human delegates. I believed I was maintaining galactic peace. Instead, I was enforcing galactic slavery. He paused, his scales shifting color with emotional distress. My people have spent the past 6 months learning the truth about our homeworld. The singers who originally lived there were not destroyed by plague as we were told. They were relocated to a dying world and left to perish so that we could have their paradise. The chamber fell silent. On the human delegation, Admiral Chen leaned forward with what Zethkari recognized as genuine interest. Not the cold superiority the Council had always displayed. We cannot undo the crimes committed in our names, Korvesh continued. But we can choose how we move forward. The Altarian Republic formally requests membership in the Free Species Alliance and commits to making reparations to the surviving singer communities. The response was immediate and unanimous. The Alliance voted to accept the Altarians despite their recent enemy status. Several species that had suffered under Council rule spoke in favor of redemption over revenge. But the session's most remarkable moment came when the lights dimmed and a new transmission began. The display showed human ships at the galaxy's edge, in systems no Council vessel had ever visited. Exploration Team 7 has made first contact with the Wanderers of the Void, reported Captain Jessica Rodriguez from her ship's bridge. They've been hiding in dark space for over 1,000 years, afraid the Council would find and destroy them. The image shifted to show beings unlike anything in the known galaxy, creatures of living energy who moved between dimensions. As easily as walking through a door, they remember the Council's early expansion, Rodriguez continued. They saw what happened to species that couldn't hide or fight back. They've been waiting, watching, hoping someone would eventually stop the cycle of oppression. Zethkari felt his compound eyes widen in shock. The Wanderers were legend, mentioned in the oldest Council records as a species that had simply vanished. They hadn't vanished. They had fled. The Wanderers wished to return to normal space, Santos announced to the Assembly. They offer to share their dimensional technology in exchange for a guarantee that they will never again need to hide from galactic authority. The vote was swift and decisive. The Alliance welcomed the Wanderers and agreed to protect any species seeking refuge from oppression. As the session continued, Zethkari began to understand what the humans had truly accomplished. They hadn't just defeated the Council militarily, they had proven that a different kind of galactic civilization was possible. One based on cooperation instead of control, growth instead of limitation, hope instead of fear. When the formal proceedings ended, Maria Santos approached the public gallery. She looked up at Zethkari with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. "Former ambassador," she said quietly, "would you walk with me?" Zethkari descended from the gallery, his movements stiff with age and the weight of his fallen status. Santos led him through the memorial halls, past the names of the extinct species. "Do you know why we rebuilt this place instead of destroying it?" she asked. Zethkari shook his head, not trusting his voice. "Because forgetting the past only ensures it will be repeated. The Council's crimes are part of galactic history now, but so is the proof that oppression can be overcome." They stopped before a new addition to the memorial, a simple plaque reading, "The Counselors Who Chose Truth." Below it were 7 names, including that of Admiral Corvesh. "Redemption is possible," Santos said, "even for those who participated in great wrongs. But it requires acknowledging the truth and working to make things better." She turned to face him directly. "The Vorthak people need leaders who understand both their past mistakes and their future potential. The Alliance could use someone with your experience to help guide that transition." Zethkari stared at her in disbelief. "You would trust me after everything?" "We would trust your choice," she replied. "Every being deserves the chance to become something better than they were. That's what the Alliance represents, the opportunity for all species to reach their potential, including yours." As they walked back through the halls, Zethkari saw human children playing with young Komori and Indari. The next generation was growing up in a galaxy where diversity was celebrated rather than feared, where different species learned from each other instead of being kept apart. The old Council had maintained peace through strength and suppression. The Alliance was building something far more powerful, peace through understanding and mutual respect. Later that evening, as Zethkari prepared his response to the Alliance's unexpected offer, he looked out at the stars through his quarters viewport. Somewhere out there, human ships were still exploring, still making contact with species that had hidden from galactic authority for centuries or millennia. The Council's final warning had been meant to force humanity into submission. Instead, it had triggered the greatest liberation in galactic history. The humans had proven that sometimes the greatest act of rebellion is refusing to become the oppressor, even when you have the power to do so. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. For the first time in 3,000 years, it was governed by hope, and in that hope, even a former Council ambassador could find redemption. Thank you for watching, and comment for next part.